Welcome to Conversations That Illuminate, a Global Lightworkers United podcast. I'm your host, Michele, and I'm one of the co-creators of Global Lightworkers United, a 501c3 nonprofit whose mission is to unite and empower lightworkers globally by building a supportive, loving community. When we say lightworker, we mean anyone who feels called to bring more healing, compassion, and consciousness into the world. This podcast is a space for real, heart-centered conversations with everyday lightworkers, people who are finding their way, their courage, and their light in a very human world. In each episode, we simply follow where our guest story wants to go, how their light first showed up, how it's moved through their life, and what it's inviting them into now. Toward the end, I'll also ask them for a little everyday spark, a small joy or practice that helps keep their light nourished in daily life. Today's guest, David Francis Collins, is no stranger to the spiritual lightworker movement. His experiences range from actual contact with ETs to active membership in the Sophia Code Divine Feminine movement to hosting an ET Conversation Hangout right here on the GLU community platform. David was born and raised in Southern Rhodesia, today's Zimbabwe, in a traditional Catholic family, and moved with his family to England after high school. There he began a remarkably diverse career as a marine engineer on tanker ships before relocating in his late 20s to the San Francisco Bay Area and eventually Alaska, where he discovered his true calling as a nurse, specializing in travel ICU nursing and finishing his career as a clinical instructor. Today, David feeds his wide-ranging passions, which include wildlife photography, acrylic painting, building wooden sailing ships, studying Egyptian hieroglyphics, cooking, and of course, his beloved cats. David, I'm so happy to welcome you to Conversations That Illuminate.
Thank you, Michele. I'm very happy to be here. And hope I can share something that would be of use to somebody out there.
Oh, I know that you will. I always love to begin our conversations by asking my guests what they were like as children. But in your case, I know that something truly extraordinary happened at a very young age that I think shaped everything that followed. And I'd love if you try to take us back there.
I was probably 3-4 years old when this experience happened. I was playing in the garden. We had not a large garden, but we had a nice garden. Where the experience happened was a rock garden. It was all granite. So there was a lot of crystal in the granite, in the rock. Because the part of the house, the living room, was actually built on granite. The foundation was solid granite. And I went out there, and I don't recall going onto the ship, but I recall coming off. And I didn't want to come home. Excuse me. It always gets me every time. But
wow, that's how powerful that must have been for you.
Yeah, it was
really literally embedded in your body.
Yeah.
Wow.
All I remember is they turned around, and one of the females turns around and says, "You have to go home because you have a message to give and something to do." Excuse me. So I went back. Yes, it still does affect me, even though it's 70-something years, like 60-something years ago. The feelings that I had when I left the ship was utter profound. I did not want to come. I just had this tremendous sense of love, fellowship, companionship. And they just really want to help. They just really want to make things better for us. One of the things they stress is they're not going to do anything for us. They're going to give us advice and tell us how to do it. They want us to actually do the physical work. A couple of years later, I was 5 years old. Southern Rhodesia at that time really didn't have air conditioning. And it was around November time, which out there is summer. So I was in the kitchen with my mother. She was making something, and I was lying on the concrete floor, which is cool. We didn't have air conditioning. We just had fans and open windows. And all of a sudden, my vision went dark, and I saw this picture, this black square, and little dots of light appeared in it. There was probably a dozen, and they grew to a little orb size. And then the spider lines of light went between each one. I have a picture of it behind me, they actually want me to repaint. And basically what it was is, again, this was heavily impressed in my mind because I've never forgotten it. They wanted to show us that we are all interconnected. That no matter how bad we think we are, or what's going on in our lives, we're all interconnected. And around the picture was this beautiful, like, yellow, white light. And the spiral, the strands of light went from that outside of the picture to each individual one and then returned. And that was their way of saying, you're all interconnected. Nothing you can do. We're all interconnected. And that's really where my spiritual life started to take off.
David, that's incredible. I mean, you were 6 years old at the time to get that kind of a powerful, powerful message.
Yeah.
How did you share any of what happened with your parents? And if so, how did they react to that?
They reacted the typical Catholic fashion. We're going to take you down and talk to a priest because you're seeing demons, you're seeing, whatever. This is just your imagination. Nothing like this can happen. They never believed me. My parents just basically forget it. It's nonsense. It's absolutely nothing. You have an overactive imagination. And I was like, yeah, I do, but this is real. You can't take away the internal feelings that you have from these experiences.
Yes. I'm also wondering, do you think, Rhodesia and Africa, Africa is very special. And you said it was particularly a rocky granite area where this all happened. Do you think there was something special about the fact that it was Africa or primarily that there was all this quartz in the particular area where you were?
I think it has a lot to do with the quartz that I was in. Because one of the feelings that I got, and I've had it all the time, is you are ready. You're ready for a step. You're ready for growth. It wasn't said in so many words as a lot of my communications are impressions I receive. Like I'll receive like that vision I had with the dots of the lights. But over the years, information comes from those feelings. It's just, there's so much information they're trying to tell you that to actually communicate verbally would be difficult. So they do a thought transference between their mind and my mind. Right. And it's just, all this information is all of a sudden there.
And so you had this the whole time as a child. Was there anyone in your world that you were able to speak with about this? No one.
My friends thought I was crazy.
Of course they did.
You're seeing things. You need to go to the hospital. No, my friends basically didn't. They just, we were just kids growing up. As a child growing up, yeah, you have fantasies and stuff like that. But my fantasies were basically like peace. Let's try and get along. Let's stop hating each other. Let's just, there's more to life than what you physically see. So I actually ended up spending a lot of my time alone because my thoughts were different from other kids. I wasn't ostracized, but, sometimes
but you
I
felt
thought
different.
You
felt different. Yeah. I think this is such a common theme that we hear among so many light workers is that they often feel like they're very different. But your situation, to go around, especially in Africa in what was the 1950s or so, to talk or 60s to be talking about this sort of stuff was Yes, I can imagine you were seen as.
Yeah, they didn't appreciate it.
I'm sure. So, but you've lived such a full and varied life. You know, you were on ships, you were in Alaska, you did nursing, so many beautiful chapters. I'm just wondering if, though, somewhere along that journey, something shifted for you spiritually. Was there a moment or an incident that occurred that sort of helped you to further awaken or deepen this whole spiritual path within you?
Yeah, I went through a period of time where, because my parents were Catholic, I went into the Protestant church, which my mother said I was going to go to hell for doing that. To a
I'm glad
church.
you're still here. But maybe this is
Me
hell.
too.
Who knows?
I went to a church in England where they were actually actively involved in the community. So we joined them. And then when I came over to the States, I was looking for the same thing. And that's kind of where I went more towards religion than my spirituality. I think basically, over a period of time, I just realized that religion was not going to give me what I wanted. It was not going to fulfill my needs. And that's when I stepped aside and decided, okay, I'm not a religious person anymore. I'm a spiritual person. And I started to learn. I started reading the Seth material, Jane Roberts. Mm-hmm. That's really, really, really what got me going. And there was so many books, especially in San Francisco, that you can get, borrow from the library or buy. It's been one step up after another.
Yeah. Well, that's, at least you didn't have some horrific dark night of the soul that led you into that. Seems like it was a natural progression, but I have this sense that probably the ETs have been guiding you the whole time, the whole way along. So
yes, they have.
Yeah.
They have.
You've described to me, your light work as educating people that other realities and beings exist beside our own. And I love that. That's that's clearly a very powerful mission that you were given, as a result of that initial encounter. So I would love, if you're okay with it, let's please go there, start to educate us, because my understanding is your ET contact, it didn't end in childhood. And you're in fact today even in communication with what you call the Galactic Council. So can you please tell us a bit about them? That would be fantastic.
Well, from what I originally understood, there's 18 civilizations around us. There's more, actually. There's a lot more than 18, but I worked with the 18 originally as a child. Their mission is to guide us and help us expand, because what they're trying to teach us is it's not about what you can accumulate on the earth as in physical terms. It's what you can accumulate in yourself in spiritual terms. How can you raise your vibrations? How can you understand that you're not the only people in this universe? Because we were taught as children that, God made us and we're the only people here and God's watching us. No, sorry, wrong. It does not fit that way. It's not how it works. And that's what they're trying to do. For me, they showed me the law of one. And I'll show you this real picture real quick. I've got to do it again.
That's very beautiful. Yeah, very beautiful.
And that's what they were trying to show. And then they go on further to talk about there's more than just the law of one. There's the law of, free will, confusion. There's a number of laws that are applicable to the Galactic Council. And what the Galactic Council is, it's a group of civilizations who have come together to realize that wars, hostility, anger are not the way. Cooperation, peace. And they will tell you that once you reach a certain level of vibration, like the fifth dimension, you start to lose that desire for war. You start to lose that anger. And this is where they're trying to lead us to.
For me, it's really important through this conversation, if we can, is that we try to help people understand the full picture, because unfortunately, most of us are working with a very limited view, shaped mainly by movies and science fiction than any real understanding. So can you help us expand that picture a little bit, David? So can you walk us through some of these various 18 extraterrestrial groups that you're talking about? So who is out there, and how do they differ from one another?
Well, there's probably the closest group that we're familiar with is the Pleiadians. They're large, about the same height as us, but they have blonde hair. They actually helped start the human civilization. Arcturians, they're higher up the scale of vibration, so they could either appear as a blue light, or they can appear as beings that are more blue. There's some of the grays. The Sassani are a group of grays which are very closely associated with Earth. They want us to learn. This is who I'll get a lot of my information from, is those three: the Arcturians, the Pleiadians, and the Sassani. But there's a lot more. It all depends on what they have to say and what they want to teach you. One of the things you have to understand is there's millions of people out there trying to talk at the same time. So you have to figure out who's talking and what are they saying. And I've got it down to a point where I can say, okay, fine, listen. I can't listen to everybody. So give me a spokesperson I can talk to. And they're more than happy to do that. I have 3 or 4 people from each group that will talk to me. And what they do is I feel a pressure on the top of my head, here, on the top, and on the back. It's like somebody just gently holding your head. That's how they transfer information to me. It's the easiest, fastest way. And they've all decided that Earth at this time is probably one of the greatest things that's happening to us, is this transformation that we're going through. It's going to be rough.
The shift that supposedly is happening, yes. Yeah,
it's going to be rough because we have to get rid of the old stuff first. Mm-hmm. Kick out the old before we can bring in the new. And they're just asking us to trust them, trust yourself, be kind, and understand that everybody's stressed out.
So does this Galactic Council, do they have a particular relationship to humanity and to Earth? And what is that? Is that just because they care, or? Well,
we were part of the galactic community at one time.
Earth was.
Yeah. We shifted away.
No longer is.
Well, we are, but we're not. What it is, Earth is quarantined. Okay. We're not allowed. There's a lot of beings who want to come to Earth and help us, but because we're quarantined, they have to have permission from the Galactic Council to do it. Because what happened is the Sassani, the Pleiadians, and a couple of other civilizations came to Earth ages ago to try and help boost mankind, and it didn't work. Because what happened is the civilizations that they were working with basically took them as gods. You guys are flying in spaceships. You guys, if you look at some of the Indian texts, they were flying in what they call vimanas, which were spaceships. So they treated them as gods. They misinterpreted a lot of what they said because it didn't quite fit their civilization's idea of what was supposed to be happening. So basically, initial contact kind of backfired. So the council said, okay, fine, nobody can land on Earth without our permission. And before you land on Earth, you have to have a specific plan of education of what you're going to do. So this is what the whole thing has been going on about. Yes, there's been a lot of visualizations of spacecraft and that kind of stuff.
Exactly. I was just going to ask about that. There's been a lot of identification sightings. I mean, even I was recently in Virginia at the Monroe Institute, and there were some very interesting things happening in the sky that, and because there were people there standing there welcoming them. Okay. There was a whole group of us, welcoming them. And I mean, someone even captured it on video, things that, how did all those lights flying around there in the sky? It was a very dark night. There's no ambient light whatsoever. Okay. It was bizarre. So they are around, right?
Yeah, there are thousands of what they call motherships out there hovering around Earth. They have cloaking devices so that we can't see them. Also, because a lot of times their vibratory level is so high, we can't see them because of that.
But I think sometimes when they sense that there are people around or whatever around welcoming them, I felt like they were doing a little spectacle and then it disappeared. Okay, is what I felt was happening. I felt they were like,
they're saying, "Hey, here we are,"
and then poof, it was gone.
Yeah.
And because there was literally no explanation for what we saw that night. Okay, it was pretty magical. But it was a very receptive audience at the Monroe Institute, which was really.
I do want to point out though that back in the 1950s, we did have contact. The United States government and other nations did have contact with ETs. In fact, they signed an agreement with the ETs and the U.S. government. Eisenhower signed it. He was kind of conned into signing it because the group of ETs that he signed with were not the actual people who are on the planet right now. And the people who are on the planet right now working with the government are not the nicest, friendliest people in the galaxy. But that's kind of our fault because we didn't check out what was going on.
Yes. And I'm thinking that you had mentioned at one point in time that there is information that the ETs feel they want humanity to have even before they come into contact with us. Okay. If there was contact initiated in the 50s, this is an entire new generation who's here now. So many people I think have not even considered that some contact is something actually that can happen during our lifetime. So I'm wondering, can you maybe share what they most would like us to understand for when that moment arrives? So at least those of us listening to this podcast are maybe a little bit prepared, because I have a feeling there's a sense of urgency about getting this message out right now.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
And basically it's the law of one. They want you to understand the law of one, what the law of one's all about.
So what is the law of one all about?
It's you're interconnected with God. Your interconnectedness with everything and everybody. And basically what it is that they're trying to teach a couple of other laws, which is one is the law of free will of choice, which means that everything that you do is free will of choice. You choose. What's the other one? But basically what it is they're not here to help, or they're not here to do things for us.
Mm-hmm.
They're here to turn around and say, okay, fine. This is the way we feel you should do things. Try exploring these avenues rather than the avenues which involves bombs and bullets and guns. There is a way to make peace. There is a way to take natural resources from the planet. There is a way to help people, make choices in life which are healthy for them. And also, one of the things they want people to understand is that your choices that you make basically affect your spiritual growth. You have to understand that the reason why you came back to this planet. You have to understand the reasons why you reincarnated.
Each of us as individuals have to be cognizant of that.
Yes. Right. And you have to accept responsibility for your reincarnation. And another thing you got to understand too is you can't save everybody. The only person you can save is yourself. Because once you got yourself and your stuff worked out, then you can start reaching out to other people, helping them and, sharing with them your experiences. Other than that, it's just, it's that's what they want us to understand. I know they're not here to take us over. They're not here to conquer Earth.
It's important too. They're not here to conquer Earth. I feel like they're very much here to help us save Earth, is what I have the feeling of very strongly. So I wanted just to take a moment to acknowledge something that means a great deal to me personally, because you're not just sharing this wisdom out in the world at large, which I know you're doing, but you've also chosen to bring it home to our GLU community. You're hosting a monthly hangout right here on our platform where members can come together to share their own experiences and knowledge about ETs, in addition to hearing some of the great knowledge and experience that you've had. So I'm just curious, like, what does that feel like? And what do you hope that space, that hangout sort of can become for the people who find their way there?
I want the hangout to come to be a safe space where people feel that they can talk to somebody who's had the experiences, who's been there, done that, won't laugh at them, won't call them crazy, but will spend the time listening to them. Because that's one of the most important things is to listen to what people have to say. Because if you don't listen to them, you miss out so much. And that's the thing I never had growing up, is I didn't have people listening to me. They told me I was crazy. They told me I needed to go to church. Priest is going to come and exorcise me or whatever it was. And it terrifies a child, So
it is terrifying for a child.
Yeah.
It's very terrifying and very isolating, very, very isolating. So I think it is so important we have this space. And we're so grateful, very, very grateful that you're here to share that with us. So
I also want people to be able to learn. That's the biggest thing is to learn. Get open your mind and learn. Because there's so much out there.
Yes.
It's unbelievable, Yes.
And I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of people are trying to generate a lot of fear around extraterrestrials. And
yes, they are.
Fear is really, it's about love. They're coming with love. They're not coming with fear. I feel they're coming very much, in love. So
one thing accurate or? Yeah, one thing I do want to point out though is don't mess with them. Don't pick an argument with them because they'll just disappear. Or you'll get some who are a little on the argumentative side and they'll fight back. And they'll make you feel really stupid. Because I've asked them some stupid questions and they've looked at me like, really? You're asking me this question? You know the answer to this. It's like, what are you doing? I'm like, okay, so I'm sorry. I'm human.
Still, yes, exactly. So David, I close every conversation with what we call the everyday spark, because as vast and extraordinary as this conversation has been today, we still wake up every morning and live our daily lives. So I'd love to know, what is the one simple joy, practice, or inspiration that nourishes your inner light every single day?
I get up at 5:30 every single morning. For a number of reasons. One, I have a number of cats that I feed, and it's just nice to be able to, chop their food up and get them fed. And then I can spend time with myself. I love to get out first thing in the morning, and as the sun's coming up, I offer a prayer to the Divine Feminine. There's a prayer I say every morning, which is for the Divine Feminine, and then I add, my own words to it afterwards. But to me, that's what gets my spark going. That connection, standing outside, hearing the birds singing, watching the sun come up, is such a powerful connection to divinity. And I really feel that divinity is listening, because I have a pretty much an open field next to me. So there's not a lot of neighbors around here. It's kind of a place you can really get back and listen to your heart, listen to nature, and listen to God. You know, and that's really what drives me, is to do that in the morning.
Perfect. Thank you so very much. So there are moments where words feel almost insufficient, and addressing you as an ambassador for the Galactic Council is one of these moments. So,
well, thank you.
But thank you for being a beacon, a bridge, and a beautiful reminder of how much more there is for us to understand. I feel David's story encourages us all to remember that and remember what is at the heart of Global Lightworkers United. Each of us lighting our own lamp, trusting that our light matters, and remembering that as we walk together, our individual flames unite into something much brighter than any one of us alone. So this has been Conversations That Illuminate, a Global Lightworkers United podcast. Until next time, I'm Michele, and I thank you for being the bright light that you are.